Well, it's still happening. In fact, it's just beginning. Although it feels like it's been going on for a long time now. Price increases in the console video game space. Microsoft announced today it is increasing prices kind of across the board in the United States, but globally as well. You can certainly blame tariffs. That is the inciting incident here. But as a reminder, it's always worth pointing out that these companies look for any opportunity to raise prices, that they are machines built to get as much money out of you as possible. So it's also fair to say that the tariffs are just an excuse. But what's the difference? At the end of the day, we are going to be paying more for video games. And let's be clear here, video game prices also going up. Microsoft confirmed that as well. You know what? Let's just get right into it. I have this story over here from Game Informer. Shout outs to Game Informer. Xbox console and accessory prices and price increases begin today. $80 first party games starting this holiday. Microsoft has announced a series of price increases for its Xbox console, accessories, and upcoming games. Beginning today, hardware will see significant price changes based on country/region. Microsoft has also confirmed it will begin pricing certain first-party games at $80 this year. A post on the Xbox support page details the adjusted prices for consoles, controllers, and headsets. These prices vary across the United States, Europe, the United Kingdom, Australia, and other territories. We'll get into all of this. Let's actually talk about it. Well, I'll go through those prices here in a second, but let's start with this statement that this, I think, says a lot more about what's going on in the console gaming space than we even realize. This is, well, I say that, and I know a lot of you are going to realize it, but it's interesting to see a company like Xbox sort of make it explicit, and that is they're done growing the console space. It's over. That's not to say consoles are over, but the idea that this is a thing that is going to grow for them and reach more people that they could sell games to through the console is an antiquated idea that they are done with. Does that mean it's done for good? Not necessarily. There's always a chance that things change and Nintendo comes in and proves that there's a way to reach more people, or some new company comes into the space and shows a disruptive chance to do things differently. But in terms of Microsoft, at least, and I do think it's true of Sony to a certain degree, and even Nintendo a little bit, they are not necessarily looking to expand the amount of revenue they make by reaching more people. They are here to nickel and dime the people that would watch this kind of video. All right, so back over to this screen. Hello, I'm looking right at you. Got it here on the teleprompter. Let's go through the prices. Recommended retail pricing for Xbox console and controllers as of May 1st, 2025. That is today. Consoles, Microsoft's Xbox Series S 512 gigabyte version will be now $380. I believe that was $300 up to this point. The Series S 1 terabyte will be $430. The X Digital will be $550. The Series X is now $600. The Xbox Series X 2 terabyte Galaxy Black Special Edition is $730. So, holy crap. That right now, that does make it more expensive than a PS5 Pro, right? And that's, for now. PlayStation's going to raise prices as well, especially if these tariffs remain as they are. And really, I think going back to these companies using this as an inciting incident, they're going to want to raise prices, although maybe Sony, because they haven't raised in the United States, doesn't want to. What I really think is happening there, PlayStation 5 got a price increase globally a few weeks back. I have a video about that. To me, that says more that they are not sure how much to raise it by, not whether or not to raise it. It's a matter of how much, not if that makes sense. They are totally going to. Is my mustache shiny? That's a gray hair, isn't it? Sorry, I'm very vain. Is the tariffs situation stable enough for them to make a fair prediction for what they should set the price to going forward? No. So I think that's the only thing holding them back from raising the price in the United States. It's probably coming here pretty soon. All right, rest of the price increases. The core Xbox wireless controller is $65 now. If you get it with a special color, it's going to be $70. The special editions are going to be $80. The limited editions will be $90. The Elite Wireless Controller Series 2 Core, which is the more affordable one, that one was like $130. Now it's $150. The Elite Wireless Controller Series 2 Full is $200. I think it was like $180 before, in that range. Xbox Stereo headset is now $65, and the wireless headset is now $120. Of course, really, I think the big thing here for anyone who already has an Xbox, which is going to be the majority of people, who this affects, right? Because there's not a ton of people out there buying Xboxes these days. That's just the reality. And that is part of what we're going to talk about here. But a lot of you watching this, if this affects you, it's probably because you already own an Xbox, and now games are going to be $80. Additionally, Xbox announces that certain upcoming first-party games will retail at $80 beginning this holiday season. This will apply to physical and digital versions. Xbox also confirms that existing releases will not see a price change. The software price adjustments are the first to follow Nintendo's $80 price for the upcoming Mario Kart World. So, I think a lot of people are going to be like, hey, thanks a lot, Nintendo. You're the ones that did this. And yeah, we can't argue it. They are certainly the ones that broke the seal on this. So if you want to lay the blame at their feet, I think that's entirely fair. I also think it's fair to point out that these companies were going in this direction anyhow, and it would have happened no matter what at some point. Maybe it wouldn't have happened this year if it wasn't for Nintendo doing it first. But you got to remember, tariffs are also going to affect those physical versions of the game that get manufactured and shipped into this country. And so the physical version was going to lose a lot of its profit margin. And so the companies were going to raise prices anyhow. But who cares? Again, we don't really care why it happens, do we? We care how much it costs and how it affects us. And I think the fact that that's what we care about, and that means we are probably going to spend less money on Xbox video games and other video games going forward, or purchase fewer of them, right? We'll probably actually end up spending more actual cash on video games because they're going up in price. But we'll actually get fewer of them. That goes back to this idea of they are here to extract as much value out of the most hardcore players, to treat us all a little bit like whales as possible. They want to get as much money from you and I as possible. You and me. That's how I would say that. You and me as possible. So what's going on there? Let's go back to this over here. Yeah. So what's going on there? I think that this is the manifestation of sort of a long-held belief and now sort of an action plan among these companies that they have a market for their game consoles and the traditional video game space that mostly comprised of consoles. That's changed a lot. PC gaming has grown a ton recently, but consoles certainly still massive. They have this market that is valuable, and it's bigger than they thought when they last had this idea in their heads that the console space was in trouble. You go back to 2011, 2012. That was a time when the iPhone was really taking off. The iPad was really taking off. The current gen at that time was not necessarily seeing a ton of people come in and adopt at the lower price point as the generation was getting older, because people were using that money to get tablets and iPhones, and then they were playing free-to-play games, or games at that point that were 99 cents. The free-to-play market was sort of getting up on its feet at that point, but it was just the person who was very value-minded and price conscious was going to look at that situation and be like, I need a phone anyhow, or I really want a tablet because it's cool and shiny and new, and then I can get games much cheaper on here than I can for a console, and they're kind of more throwaway, more, and that's how a lot of people want to experience games. It's for them, it is similar to getting a game in a newspaper, right? The funny pages, and doing a crossword there, where it's like, this is part of my day, but it's not the thing I would say if someone asked me what my hobby was. Still gamers, no judgment from me, but that is a market that was once served buy a $130 PlayStation 2 and a copy of FIFA or Madden late in a generation. Those people didn't show up anymore. And so at the time, in 2011, 2012, Microsoft and Sony were both looking at this trend, and they thought it applied much more broadly. They thought that everyone was going in that direction because they had already sold consoles to the hardcore, and they didn't know if those people were going to show back up for the PlayStation 4 and the Xbox One. And they were wrong. People flocked to those consoles. The Xbox One did very well, and we all know PS4 did extremely well. It was a very successful console, despite the fact that both the Xbox One and the PS4 are junk for hardware. Terrible consoles in terms of their specifications, embarrassing CPUs, kind of okay GPUs, and really slow hard drives. They were bad consoles. I have a video about that as well. You should go watch. Anyway, they were wrong though, and even though those consoles were bad, tons of people showed up for them, and the console market was saved. Now, they read the tea leaves wrong again as we are like going into the pandemic, and we had the PS5 and the Xbox Series X, and a lot of people were kind of coming back to consoles with discretionary spending, but they were doing that out of a different need that wasn't necessarily going to be replicatable. You weren't going to be able to recreate that situation over and over again to get that long-term value out of those kinds of people who were playing games. So these companies deeply invested in the console gaming space, which was good for us. We like that. A lot of cool game projects in the works. And now these companies are looking around and being like, oh, can we even justify this? We thought we were going to be able to like take our Game Pass growing service and our games and put them on Xbox and sell Xboxes to a ton of people coming out of the pandemic and make that all make sense. Okay, you know what? Never mind. We need to change our strategy. We need to put our games out everywhere. And really, our concerns about selling the console, we need to put that in the rearview mirror, because that is a sort of albatross. That is this, it's an anchor around our necks of the only way we can get money out of someone is if we first charge them $500 for a console that we don't really make any money on. That is prohibitively expensive for a vast number of people. And why are we trying to force this business model when it isn't really growing anymore? And so here we are. They are clearly not trying to grow the console gaming space, because if they were, they would be lowering prices. Components are getting more expensive, or staying expensive longer than they may have in past generations. Tariffs are going to cause these things to go up in price even more. So they probably are still not making a ton of money on hardware. But, you still want things to be a loss leader if that's your strategy, but it's not their strategy. They are no longer that, like the idea of, hey, let's get an Xbox in someone's hands because then we can control the ecosystem and we can make so much money from them long term. That is what this is saying, is we would rather make more money from the smaller audience, or it's a sizable audience still, but the audience that we currently have as it stagnates and no longer grows. But let's nickel and dime them, and really $50, $100 them. That's a terrible thing to say. Terrible phrase. I'm trying to get that out of my mouth. $50 to $100 them instead of nickel and dime them. And kind of across the board, because they kind of know they have us, right? They kind of have us handcuffed. We've committed our lives to playing games this way, and we don't really want to change. And that's the one thing that they know they can take advantage of, is it's very hard for people to change their behavior. And I think they see that on both sides. It's hard to get someone who isn't used to buying a console to buy a console. In fact, it's basically impossible is how they're viewing it. And then it's also very unlikely that they would be able to sort of capture the value they get from us who do buy consoles if they were to stop manufacturing them, if they were to try to shift us to the cloud or to mobile or to, a lot of people just to PC. They would lose a lot of that money in that transition, because people would they would come back to gaming, but it would be unpredictable how they would come back to gaming. Who knows what they would end up, how they would end up spending their money. So if you already have them and they're already spending their money. Keep making the console, but charge them a premium, because these people, you and I, are more likely to keep spending more because we don't want to lose the hobby as we know it. And I mean, how do we feel about this? Because I don't feel great about it. To me, what this says is this fraught relationship that we have with these game companies is only going to get worse. You know, the stark, naked reality of them trying to extract as much value from us as possible is something we've always been able to understand and see. But I do think something has broken here where it's more naked and less apologetic and sort of just like take it or leave it. And, you know, to go from, you know, power to the gamers or whatever the saying was, and, you know, all these marketing slogans about how it's all about us and we're the ones that matter, to take it or leave it. Hey, yeah, we should have known it was always going to end up here, I guess. But it still feels really bad to have to realize that these corporations are going to just strip everything from us that they possibly can, and then maybe give us a game here or there that we care about. That's the worst part, is we're spending more money than ever, and it feels like we're getting less than ever. Do you even feel like the PS5 generation has even started? You know, it's a weird question still. And for many people, maybe yes. But I know there's a lot of people out there who are still looking around being like, yo, when are they going to actually start releasing games that feel like PS5 games at a good cadence? We've had some, but it has definitely not felt like the PS4 generation when that really got started, which took a couple years as well. We are much further into this generation than a couple of years. So we're getting less, we're paying more, and we don't have a lot of other options. Now, what do you do about it? You got to look at your other options. More indie gaming. There's a ton of cool stuff out there. Recalibrate your expectations. Stop putting emphasis on high fidelity visuals. You know, only a handful of developers are really going to be able to deliver that in a way that is like on the level of The Last of Us Part 2 or something like that. I think if we all settle in and say, hey, well, maybe can we get Clair Obscur Expedition 33 level visuals going forward? That's going to be doable. Although you better be okay with all of that happening in Unreal Engine, because no one's going to be able to afford to make their own engine. I'm rambling now. Yeah. This is it. It's going to keep getting worse for now. And is there an other side of this? Yeah, but I mean, I don't think it's going to be the other side. And this is, you know, I was pessimistic back in 2011, 2012 as well. So let's keep that in mind. That my pessimism has caused me to inaccurately predict the future before, and it's going to happen again. And this could very well be that happening again. But the reality is that on the other side of this, whatever this is, it's probably not like it was in the early 2010s when we did get on the other side. It was like, oh my God, PS4 is selling like crazy. People want these games so bad. Oh my God, here is the Switch now, a couple years later, and that is flying off the shelves, and these games are selling better than they ever have. You know, reality is Switch 2 is probably not going to do as well as the Switch 1. Those games will probably still do pretty well, but I don't know. Do we expect, like, does Mario Kart World sell better than Mario Kart 8 Deluxe? I don't know. Does Animal Crossing, the next Animal Crossing, sell as well as New Horizons? I don't know. Does Zelda ever sell more than 30 million copies again, the way that Breath of the Wild did? I mean, there's questions about whether Tears of the Kingdom can replicate that. The questions to those, or the answers to those questions, are not settled. It's not yes or no. We don't know yet. For some of those, it very much could be yes. But it does feel like, in a lot of cases, the next big major gaming epoch, the way things work going forward, is going to be so different that the video game industry as we know it is probably going to be unrecognizable. Already is in a lot of ways. All right. Wow. Hey, here we are, me being a downer. Weird that I feel that way in this moment. Thanks for watching. Jeff Grubb's Game Mess isn't going anywhere. Maybe expect more of these videos. I'll be doing more of them, I think. Maybe not daily, close to something like it. I like talking to y'all, and when there's something happening that I feel like I can explain just a little bit, I'll do that. We want to understand how this business works, right? That's been one of my curiosities for a long time. And if that's you, keep tuning in. Until next time, have a good one. Take care of yourself, and goodbye.